here in Tooele, Utah. This is the NASA National Championships presented by Toyo Tires, Miller Motorsports Park. A huge class of Porsches and BMWs here. GTS 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One thing's for sure, some great racing here. Clark will join me once again. We're ready to go.
That's right. We're going to pull up the field just in a second here. These guys are getting ready to go. Chad Nelson will start on the pole. Brad Larson in second. Marty Materi in third. Brett Strom fourth. And Sergio Nardi will start in the fifth spot.
John Matthew in sixth. David Buhane in seventh. Jay Mattis in eighth. Bill Mahulik in ninth. And Sarah Cattaneo in 10th.
And we talked a little bit about GTS. GTS actually stands for German Touring Series. So anything that is built in Germany, Porsches, BMWs, Audis in theory, although I don't think there are any Audis in the field, even BMW Minis are all allowed to run in this class. GTS 5 being the fastest of the cars, all the way down through GTS 1, which are 944s, things like that. We're going to see some very serious cars up front, though. Some GT3 Cup cars, some real serious BMW M3s as the green waves.
Yeah, big horsepower here, big German horsepower, and looks like the Porsche is going to have the advantage down this very long straightaway over the BMW, the M3 series, as we kick things off.
Yeah, so that was Larson in that GT3 Cup car. It's got a nice sequential box in it, big horsepower, pulls out front ahead of Nelson in that M3. And we're on board with Sergio Nardi right now. He's in a little bit older 911 style chassis. Sergio has a lot of history over the years running various race cars, and he stepped into fourth place for the first lap.
A little body English in there too, some good grip in these cars, a lot of money in these cars. He's fallen back just a bit as those top three start to check out already. I'm really surprised he doesn't have more of a full containment seat in there.
Yeah, Sergio, I think, is kind of an old school guy. Cool to watch his hands as he runs through this first lap. You know, tires are still cold a little bit, getting sideways, breaking the rears loose. You can see him working that wheel as he drops back now into fifth. Now watching the battle for the lead. That's Nelson in second right now in that M3. Larson is in the lead in that black and orange Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. As they head through Witchcraft, they'll head up into the Attitudes next here.
Larson, a great look there, and also you speaking about Nelson coming out of the Arizona region as he heads north up here to Utah. Nelson in that BMW.
And one of the things we should mention, even though there are different classes, GTS 5 through GTS 1, all of these guys run together. It's sort of an American Le Mans feel. So, we'll see battles throughout, even if it isn't necessarily for class position. These guys still fight it out. This is for the overall lead and the GTS 5 lead. And we can see the 407 of Nelson now taking over the top spot.
Great onboard there with Larson. Nice and smooth. Look at those hands. Nice and smooth. Oh, a little counter right there. There's that sequential box we were talking of. Just a quick little blurb of the shifter handle, and the next gear's there. Yeah,
gotta love that. And Larson with big horsepower. We saw that on the start. And a lot of horsepower on the straightaway. Looks like he's going to choose to stay. Well, maybe not. He's going to challenge for the lead once again going into turn one. Not quite enough, though, as Nelson hangs on to it.
And, of course, the Porsche, oh, man, got in there so hard, had such a great run on him. He almost ran into the back of him, had to check up, pushed him out, almost off the track, will lose a lot of ground.
Yeah, stay calm, brother. Don't get too excited as they head into turn three.
In a lot of other forms in motorsports, they would have gone ahead and put a bumper on that guy in front of him, and that cost him. He got on that rumble strip. These Porsches have a lot of rear weight, and it cost him big. I can't imagine he'll be able to recover here. This race is gone.
Oh, man, what a bummer for Larson, having a really good run. Just got a little bit wide coming out of screen. And, it's one of those times where you got to back off a little bit, maybe give up a position. Tried to keep his foot in it, tried to work it back on the track, and a lot of times when you do that, you drop one tire onto the track, keep the other one off, rear tires break loose, and around you go. And I think he'll be able to get it restarted, but unfortunately his chance at a win is probably gone as Nelson is far out front now.
And I got to tell you, there was a couple of those guys back there. There was another driver back there with him, so now I'm beginning to wonder if he didn't get a little love tap from the back.
Yeah, it could be. I think that was Brett Strom in that silver Porsche that was back a little bit farther, kind of challenging for second place there. And, yeah, he may have gotten to the back of Larson or maybe Larson knew he was there, wanted to make sure he didn't lose another spot. You know, we've talked about this before. Sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to, you know, stay calm those first couple of laps, especially a big national championship event like this. And, you know, it's easy to make a mistake and throw it all away early.
Brett Strom there, I believe, in that silver BMW. That's a GTS4 car. Now finds himself in second place overall. Pretty amazing when you think about how fast the GTS5 cars that are up ahead of him. So great opportunity for him, although he has laid down some incredibly quick laps down in the 2:05 range.
Yeah, Strom doing a good job. And when we talk about these different classes, really the key here is weight to horsepower ratio. So NASA sort of sets a target for how much horsepower you can have per pound, and if you go over that, then you get bumped up in class. That's sort of how they determine that. Now on board with the BMS Gluskin car, some of these guys will enter as their own name, or they'll enter as a team name. It has to do with how NASA allocates points. So this particular car is a BMS Gluskin entry, and we see some good racing back here. I believe that's Jay Mattis just ahead of him in that black Porsche 996. Got some good racing. These are GTS4, GTS5, maybe a GTS3 car in there. In fact, I think Mattis is the GTS3 leader right now. So all these guys kind of going at it.
And the Gluskin car out of California, the southern region there, 1995 M3.
A good shot of Mattis right there. I believe Jay is a NASA regional director. One of the cool things about NASA, you know, a lot of these guys that run the organization are also racers. From the chairman, Ryan Flaherty is out running in a couple races this weekend. Jeremy Corsett is out here running in a few races this weekend. Jay Mattis, a whole bunch of these guys. And it's kind of a neat thing about the organization is that the people who are running the organization and sort of making the decisions are also racers. So they kind of understand the addiction, so to speak, and can make good decisions that sort of benefit you know, all the members as racers as well.
And Jay able to get through a lot of those turns there, looking nice and smooth. You can see him a bit more of a full containment seat in him, keep him under control here a little bit better, makes you a little more able to control the car. Great battle going on here, nose to tail action.
That is Sergio Nardi in that older silver Porsche, big whale tail on that thing, beautiful car. I think that's a I think the chassis number on that is actually a Porsche 930. It's a 1966 car, although I'm not sure, you know, how much on that car is actually from 1966.
Yeah, these guys will update a lot of the bodywork, of course, newer power plants, and it's kind of funny to see the huge whale tail in these cars because they are so rear heavy. The bias on these cars are rear heavy with the engine being back there, and you put that huge whale tail, it takes even more weight off the nose, so it's not uncommon for these things to have a push in them.
That's right, yeah, and you know, sort of the Porsche, the famous Porsche tail slop, where, you know, you have a big weight in the back. It's you know, biased towards the rear, and when the rear does start to come around, it can come around all the way. So it's a challenging car to drive, but you know, Porsche's had so much success, especially in endurance racing over the years. You know, certainly to this day, if you want to go out and win an endurance race, you know, a Porsche 996 is you know, one of the cars you certainly look at. Fantastic car straight from the factory, so you know, it's no surprise to see these guys having a lot of success. And we can see just back from them is that E30 M3. That's a classic car. I was looking at it earlier. Beautiful white E30 chassis. That's going to be Bill Michaluk, and he is challenging Jay Mattis for third overall right now. So good run for that E30 chassis.
Yeah, I mean, really, all these cars out here, and you know, you're going to pick away at it and find the faults or the advantages to another car, but the Porsche design, as you mentioned, has just been so successful. And it's funny that you say that. You know, you look at something that's from the 60s and look at it now, even current day, and the overall body style, well, it's changed a little bit. The basic design's still about the same. So, needless to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
That's right. Yeah, Porsche has just a fantastic design there. And they've won so many races. And one of the things we always talk about with Porsche, you know, especially even when you look at some of NASA's endurance events like the 25 hours, the Porsches are always a threat because they are just dead reliable. They're fantastic cars and that they just run well all the time. So now kind of keying on this battle a little bit farther back, that white car is David Buhane, that white 911, kind of an older car, number 900. John Matthew is that dark blue BMW M3, and the dark silver Porsche is Marty Materian. Marty making a good run, kind of coming up through the field. Again, kind of an older car, but Marty's going real quick in it.
He's flying right there. I mean, he made the pass and just drove away. So a nice job for Marty. And again, with a big whale tail on it, you can see it working perfectly. Late apex on that turn. That's a perfect layout. Driving a beautiful line here as he goes into number 2. And you can see the big body, you know, carrying all that weight, all that speed. Just kind of drifts towards the outside, using every last inch of the track. That's what you've got to do to maintain speed.
Yeah, man, you know, NASA has such a sort of wide range of different classes, so we've seen some momentum cars. Spec Miata's here this week. 944 Spec is here this week, but then we have these big cars with big motors, and these cars really just love this big track. I mean, they're like caged animals when you take them to a little track and you take them to a place like Miller where they can really open up and you know, just stretch their legs, and it's cool to see. I mean, it's neat to see these things, you know, 160, 170 down the long front straightaway, and you know, just kind of drift through these long corners.
Yeah, let these puppies breathe, man. The other thing where they really start to shine when they can open them up is also the braking. I mean, that's where a lot of races are won. It's under braking, and these cars have excellent brakes on them that last the duration of the event. I mean, these guys just stand on them at the very last moment.
Absolutely keen now again on Sergio Nardi. I believe Nardi is, let's see, he's in GTS 5, I think, so he's doing a good job. Running second or third right now. Once again, back on board with him as he runs through Clubhouse. Wind up is this kind of tight right-hand corner, and then through release, we'll take him onto the long front straightaway.
And the onboard there, if you look at that steering wheel when he was making a right-hander, once in a while you just catch a glimpse of it now, but right at the top of the steering wheel is a little piece of tape just to kind of let him know where center is.
Yeah, that's right. You know, you can kind of get lost on that sometimes, especially if you turn the car around, and so that's kind of a helpful little driver aid. You know, I mean, it's kind of funny. You would think things like that. You think, well, my street car doesn't have a piece of tape on it. Why would I need one in a race car? But there's so much going on in a race car. The driver has to focus on so many things all the time that sometimes just giving him little aids, little things to sort of help make his job easier allows to kind of free up a little bit more of his processing power to, you know, other tasks. It's sort of like when you're working on your computer, you don't want 1,000 windows open. Same thing for these guys. You know, they want to be able to focus on the track all the time, so you give them, we call them idiot lights, give them lights to tell them when you know, the engine's about to blow up, give them little pieces of tape on the wheel, things like that you know, really help them sort of free up their mind for more important things like not wadding up the $200,000 piece of machinery that they're slinging around the track.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're in one of these races, you know, you don't always have time to look at the gauges. If you're on a big track like we are here, maybe you're in a position where Sergio is right now. Yeah, you're coming down a long straightaway, glance at the gauges, make sure all the temperatures are set, and you're really not looking at the temperature. You're looking more where the dial is in position to where it should be. And a lot of times you'll see the guys will twist the gauge so that the dial is facing straight up. So if all the arms and the dials are facing straight up, you know you're good to go. And as you mentioned before, you don't have to really worry about it. If something goes wrong, you set up your dummy lights, and if one of those goes off, hey, something's happened here. A quick glance to figure out whether you need to shut it down or not.
That's right, and the thing you got to remember too is with these high horsepower cars, even though you have a long straightaway, it goes by pretty quick. So you got to be able to you know, stay focused and sort of stay on the button and just sort of glance down and figure out where you are, and then go back to racing again.
Now, all these guys have data acquisition systems on the cars as well. They have time versus distance, so they can break this track down into literally, you know, 20, 30 segments, take a look at every corner, every entry, every exit, and find out where the adjustments and changes have helped them or hurt them when they go back into the pits. And they've been doing that since Wednesday. I mean, they practiced here Wednesday. You mentioned before, heat races started Thursday. They ran Friday, and then they start the championship races on Saturday and Sunday out here.
That's right, and I got a nice little battle. This isn't necessarily in class. That the white 911 there is David Buhane. He's a GTS 5 car. He just made his way around the GTS 3 leader, which is Jay Matus. And I believe that car just behind him, that M3 with the sort of white and red, that's Sarah Catania. Sarah actually is going to be running in the Coney Challenge car, or Coney Challenge race coming up. So some of the Coney Challenge competitors are here sort of sharpening their skills on the track before that event. So Sarah having a good run in that M3.
Yeah, they'll be here the following weekend, so it's a great testing opportunity to come out here and get used to it. Of course, they'll run the full course when they get here for the Coney Challenge, so the infield will be open to them.
That's right. Yeah, actually, you know, kind of putting on my producer hat for a moment. I produce all this stuff for Speedcast, and you may see these green scissor lifts around the track. We actually work to deal with the folks that are covering the World Challenge event, so that we kind of shared the costs on those scissor lifts. So, you know, it's sort of my other hat when I'm not announcing. I got to figure out, you know, cost of scaffolding and hotel rooms and things like that. It's not quite as glamorous.
You see the 997 there, the GTS 4 car, David Levis. He also is running in the category of PTA, has had a good effort there this weekend as well. I mean, he's been out here putting a bunch of laps on this car, and that's another cool thing about it. I mean, these things are so durable.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these guys do that. They'll come to this event and they'll either bring multiple cars or they'll bring one car and run in a bunch of different classes. You know, the 944 spec guys, which we watched earlier, you know, there's a few of the 944 spec guys are out in this class, so it's kind of cool for these guys. You know, they make the trip. A lot of them are you know, pretty far drive away, but when they come to the event, it's a big event. They get a bunch of laps. They get to run heat races before the main event. They run practice, and then they run multiple classes, so they really get their money's worth out of you know, making the trek out here.
Great looking ride once again. So many different designs on these cars that make them stand out and look a little bit different. You're looking for something unique because so many of the designs look the same if they're the same color. Yeah, man,
that's like the classic sort of old Momo racing colors right now. That's Robert Gunderman. It's a Porsche 911. It's a GTS 3 car. Gunderman having a good run in GTS 3 at the moment. I believe he's third place right now in GTS 3. And just a beautiful 911 there.
Yeah, great look, and you know, I mean, that just screams race car. That takes me back to the older days at Sebring, the 12 Hours of Sebring, and those big whale tails were out there, and the Porsches were just dominating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a neat car to see. Big old wing on it, the yellow wheels. I'm trying to look here and see what year that car is. Let's say a 1985 911, so a little bit more of a stand-up windshield on it, a little bit more pronounced headlights on it. Maybe not as aerodynamic as the new stuff, but still very cool to watch.
Just great-looking rides. I mean, those whale tails look so sweet. Of course, all the ground effects, you know, the lower valance on the front of the cars and then down the side as well to keep some of that aero and that air pushed outside of the vehicle.
I believe this is David Levis. Number 997. It's a white Porsche 997. Creative numbering there for David. Also having a good run.
Big speed. I mean, we talked about it before. These cars produce easily 400 horsepower and up, especially, you know, when you get the turbo additions. Man, they can produce upwards of 600-700 horsepower without too much trouble at all.
Yeah, one of the things I love about these Porsches is that really, you know, it's Dr. Porsche's BMW or VW motors sort of expanded, and they water-cooled it in some cases and put turbos on it, and they just keep making it bigger and bigger, but it's still that opposed engine.
Oh, and Levis going all the way around. A tough moment for him in a very expensive car.
Yeah, I believe that's in release. And it doesn't look like there's any damage there, but he's going to have to wait for the field to sort of cycle by before he can pull around to get back in the group.
I'm really surprised he let that thing roll all the way back down across the track. It could have been a very scary moment if somebody was right behind him. Maybe he knew he had a little bit of room and thought maybe he could roll back down and get out of the way. Nonetheless, does stay out of the way, and everybody gets around.
Yeah, looks like he's able to continue, so that's good news for David. Seen a lot of people spin there. Right? That corner is a challenge, you know, especially the fast way around that corner to a certain extent is to be able to let the tail kind of come out and rotate around the nose, and you know, sometimes you have to be able to stop the rotation at the right point. And I think in that case, you know, David maybe over-rotated a little bit and ended up looping the car. So no harm, no foul, though, able to continue, which is good news for him.
When you kind of mentioned it before, once these things start to take off, man, it's very, very difficult to save one.
Sure, absolutely. Back on board with Sergio Nardi as he continues to circulate. Sergio having a good solid run. I believe Sergio has quite a bit of experience. I think he ran Camel Lights back in the day. Done a lot of different endurance racing, things like that over the years. We see a little bit of a lockup. Big Porsche enthusiast, very good, very experienced driver, been around a long time. That's one of the neat things you see about GTS is, a lot of these guys are really committed to the brand, and so they'll come out and they just love the car that they race. They've been racing it forever. They sort of know the ins and outs of that race car, and they're able to come out and play with all kinds of different kinds of German brands on kind of a equalized playing field with the weight to horsepower ratios that NASA's set up.
Sergio with Game Face Motorsports out of La Habra, California. And we go back once again, take a look at Marty, and Marty's still picking them off, man, one at a time.
Batarian having a good run. Again, that's that E30 just ahead of him with Michaluk. That car actually is for sale. I was down looking at it earlier. I love those.
Don't tease me, man.
I know. I love those old cars.
I've got like 30, 40 bucks in there. I've been wanting to spend it on something. My guess is that won't get even close, though, to that one. Those older Beamers, man, once you go to work on them, they're pretty fast. Marty with a great job there, goes to the inside, takes over the position, and, of course, the guy giving him plenty of room.
Yeah, Bill giving him room and allowing Marty to get through. I wonder, I'm not quite sure what happened in the heat races, why Marty started quite so far back, but obviously he's got a lot of speed because he's able to make up a bunch of time on these different cars, so he continues to carve his way forward.
And you mentioned before, with tech, you go through those heat races, and obviously you go through tech afterwards, and there's also qualifying for the heat races, so there's a lot going on here throughout the days. But when you roll through tech, if you get disqualified for something, you go to the back of the pack, and that hurts you at the start of the championship race that we see here today. I know that all too well because our race car made 4 horsepower too much. At the end of a qualifying session, to the back of the pack we went, but it was for a heat race, so fortunately it didn't affect us as much as it would here.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that's always the challenge for these guys is they actually put the cars on a chassis dyno at the track, so they'll weigh the car comes off the scales, goes on the chassis dyno, and if the day is a little bit better than you expected, maybe the engine loosened up a little bit more than you expected, you might end up over in horsepower, and then you end up getting disqualified. So it's sort of a balance there to think about because you want to run the car as light as you can, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're going to get disqualified. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more German Touring Series action. The National Autosport Association German Touring Series National Championship is brought to you by the competitors of the German Touring Series.
We are back here at Tooele, Utah, with the NASA National Championships. This is the GTS class, and it's 1 through 5, so some very, very fast, expensive race cars out here.
And Ken, one of the things that we're going to start seeing is the wind is starting to kick up. There's a little bit of a storm coming in. You can see those trees kind of blowing. I feel bad for these guys because last year at the NASA Championships, they were at Mid-Ohio, other side of the country, and the remnants of Hurricane Ike blew through during the GTS race. It was the last race of the day on the second day, and it was just a mess. There were tree limbs and branches blowing everywhere, and again, we're kind of encountering some high winds, so unfortunate situation, but hopefully these guys will be okay, and hopefully our camera operators will be able to stay up and continue to shoot this race. Saw Marty Batarian make his way by Scott Bove. Scott actually is involved with that's that white and blue 944 right there. It's getting past. He's running in GTS 1 right now, running second in GTS 1. Scott's actually involved with WC Vision, which is sort of the guiding body for World Challenge now. So Scott getting involved with that organization a couple years ago, trying to help World Challenge move forward and continue to grow as one of the really neat series out there that's sort of a step up from what we're doing now. So Scott out having a good time. This is kind of his way to relax at the end of the year.
Great looking car as well. I mean, not a whole lot you can do, it seems like, with the 944s, but he's definitely come up with a nice color design on that one. Spoke with Scott a lot on the telephone lately. Yeah, super individual, and those guys are doing a great job over there at World Challenge, making a lot of changes for the 2010 season, and looks like they're going to be good, successful changes.
Absolutely, and Scott actually, last year when they had 944 Cup, which is a class that's actually not at the championships this year, Scott was on pole last year. Had some rain last year, was real quick in the rain, did a really good job putting on pole, and unfortunately ended up kind of getting tapped in the first lap and ended up, I think, in 10th or 11th overall, but was certainly a threat for the win last year in that class. So Scott's brought out the same car this year and is now classified in the GTS group. So doing a good job, having a good time out here today.
You can see him hold it tight out of that right-hander, kind of giving up the right-hander to set himself up for the long left-hander here to carry a little more speed down the straightaway. That's exactly what you have to do. There's give-up turns, and then there's turns that you need to carry the big speed through.
Yeah, absolutely. We can see that our cameras are starting to bump around a little bit here in the wind. Unfortunately for these guys, they're way up in the air on those scissor lifts, and those scissor lifts move around a lot. When you're up 30 feet in the air and the thing's moving back and forth 4 or 5 feet, it can be pretty disconcerting. And so these guys are going to do their best job, but may see a little bit of bumpiness as the wind continues to pick up.
Yeah, and ironically enough, the entire week, I mean, from Tuesday through Saturday, was just, hot. I mean, we're talking about in excess of 100 degrees. All of a sudden, you wake up on Sunday, everything has changed drastically. It's much cooler. You mentioned a storm coming in. The wind starts to blow. It changes everything that you worked on for 4 days. So now maybe you change a wing to adjust the attitude a little bit, maybe free that thing up even a little bit more because the wind's coming at you. And there's a lot of things that happen here. Your tire pressures that you've worked on from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, now maybe they're a bit different. Beautiful look there, by the way, at that BMW just carrying the left front tire through the exit of that turn.
Yeah, that was a cool shot. That's actually Dan Goodman, the 56. He's a GTS2 competitor. I believe he's leading that class right now. So you can see Dan kind of showing us how it's done, leading that VW GTI, I think, in just behind him.
And a lot of times when you talk about air pressures, maybe that adjustment might be a pound or 2 pounds, but it could be a lot. I mean, it could be the difference of that car handling the last 3 laps of the race or not handling. And if you're in a fierce battle with somebody for position, it could cost you everything.
Absolutely, and the other thing that you got to factor in is which way is the wind blowing. If you have a headwind going on the front straightaway, it can really affect your top speed. As you said, maybe you pull some wing out. Some of these cars, they actually change gear ratios, so maybe you change the gear ratio a little bit to compensate for that. I was a competitor at another national championship event, which will go unnamed, and for a lot of years it was at the same track, and we were always very concerned about how much headwind we have down the long back straightaway, because that can really affect how the car passed in that last crucial lap. So you think a lot about what are we going to do and what am I going to do with gearing to compensate for it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, our PTA car does have a quick change rear end in it, and we actually did change gears for this particular race on this day because we didn't think we could pull that extra 2-3 mile per hour. And it also, of course, gives you a little more torque to come out of the turn. So you have to take a look at all those conditions and try to guess at what the optimal performance is going to be.
Absolutely. And, I mean, in GTS 2, because you're running with all these different competitors, there may be situations where you're in a lower class, but you're having to deal with, say you're a GTS 3 car, you got to deal with a 4 or 5 that may be faster down the straightaway, and you have to think about what can I do to make my car quicker in the right spot to sort of deal with that car that may have more horsepower. So even more so, these guys have to start factoring in, how can I make my car racier? How can I make it a car that can pass other cars and work traffic well?
Again, another good look at the cars coming down through attitude as they use those rumble strips to their advantage to try and straighten those S's out as much as possible. Of course, the fastest point between A and B is a straight line, so they try to make everything here as straight as possible. Good look down on the inside. getting a little closer. Again, you know, we want to congratulate all these drivers out here. Zero contact, or very little contact, maybe is a better way to put it. You can't see everything out here, but these guys really try hard not to get into each other.
Yeah, and that's actually Valley Prodescu in that black 911. It's got a little bit of gold trim on it. Right now, I believe he's second in GTS 3 behind Jay Matus. We talked about Jay earlier. So Valley having a good run. And just sort of working up through lap traffic. You know, as big as this field is, because this track is so enormous, they've really kind of gotten spread out, so you don't see the kind of you know, traffic density that you see at many other tracks. When the championships was at Mid-Ohio, which we're going to be at Miller one more year and then back to Mid-Ohio the next year. You know, traffic was the real challenge, and you're talking to Scott Berkowitz, who was last year's GTS 3 champion. Scott said that the big challenge for this class is just being able to pass. You know, that's really what it's all about. Now, at this facility, with the track as big as it is, it's over 3 miles long. You can see the cars get spread out a little bit more, and it isn't quite as much of a challenge, but it's still something these guys are going to have to deal with.
Yeah, at Mid-Ohio, going back to what you were talking about there, and it's a track that's kind of conducive to a car that has big horsepower. That long straightaway at Mid-Ohio, you can pass somebody and then get in the preferred line through the tight stuff and just hang on. It's very difficult to pass in the tight stuff at Mid-Ohio. You have to come off that last turn there and then hopefully have some horsepower on them. And if you do get in front of them, you have to get in front of them early enough in the tight stuff to break away, which means, of course, you can't have anybody else in front of you. We fight that all the time with our race car as well, because it's a low horsepower but handles really well. This particular track here at Miller is very conducive to that because the turns are so long and so sweeping. So if you have a good handling car, this is an awesome track for you.
Sure, yeah, you can carry all kinds of speed and you know, sort of leap from one corner to the next. So, you know, certainly handling comes into play. For instance, in the attitudes here, a little bit tighter corners, but they really set you up to run down the short chute into Clubhouse. So again, watching, that's the 900 again of David Duhane, having a good run here.
A good nose-to-tail action once again, and watching the differences in the BMWs and the Porsches. The Porsches have some good horsepower, no doubt. You see the Beamers run up on them in the turns and seem to handle just a little bit better, but then that big horsepower for the Porsches comes out.
Sure, absolutely. And as they work their way down through the last few corners, again, this is coming through Clubhouse, then wind up and then release onto this long front straightaway. And actually, this track, we talked about this before a little bit, this track has a couple different configurations, and you can see here just off to the right of this shot, they can actually break this track up into 2 separate courses. So in theory, you could sort of kick off to the left and run one course, or then run the other one, which is kind of a neat feature. You know, when they have events where they'll have a school at Miller or something like that, they can you know, run 2 separate events on the same track at the same time.
You know, when this track is in full course configuration, it is the largest road racing track in the country, surpassing the previous record holder of Road America by about a half a mile. So it is a large facility, absolutely spectacular place. The pits here completely paved, a lot of garages here. There's go-kart tracks here. I mean, it's an incredible facility, millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, the story goes Larry Miller built this track. He recently passed away. He was owner of Utah Jazz. He was owner of a lot of different Ford dealerships, movie theaters, all kinds of stuff. Larry was kind of one of those guys that had the golden touch, but built this track really as a track just to have fun with. And then visited Nürburgring in Germany, which of course is a famous facility and also has you know, F1 pits and things like that, and realized, you know, we just want to do more with this facility. We really want to make it world class. And I think you'd agree, Ken, that when you walk around the pits here, the facilities are just top notch. I mean, they're just beautiful garages, covered grandstands everywhere to keep people out of the desert heat, and a really neat facility for spectators. They can see essentially the whole track all the way around. They have jumbotrons everywhere. So it's just a really fantastic, neat place, and Larry Miller and the whole Miller family has really done a good job of making this one of the best facilities in the U.S., if not the best facility in the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely, second to none. I agree with you. Just a beautiful racetrack. I was so excited when we pulled in here, and then to add to their repertoire of racing in 2010, I know they're in negotiations. In fact, the deal might be done now to hold a Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series event. So that'll be on the backside of the parking lot. They're very excited about bringing that to town.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just this huge group of enthusiasts out there that love off-road racing. So that's going to be a great offering for them. So very cool stuff going on. Once again, on board with Team BMS Gluskin is that very quick BMW GTS 5 car hauls its way down, or GTS 3 car, I'm sorry, hauls its way down the straightaway.
Yeah, showing some good muscle there, and last minute pass going into turn number 1.
And now keying on, I believe that's the Mini of Ricky Johnson, the 0 car. Ricky, a young man, been racing a couple years, and his Cold Stone Creamery sponsorship on the side of that car, which is kind of neat. These Mini Cooper S's, you know, my wife drives a Mini, and when they first came out, they were supercharged, and you know, although that's kind of a nice feature on the street, one of the problems with superchargers is they heat up during a road race. They don't cool back down, and you end up heating the air that's entering the engine. Of course, a supercharger is designed to make the air entering the engine denser. You get back up, you sort of lose that advantage, and so superchargers tend to not be the best option for road racing because they lose horsepower over time. Well, Mini has moved to a turbocharger now, and that's really helped make the cars quick for a long period of time, a little bit more consistent. I believe this car runs in a touring car series that NASA puts on. So very neat little car, has air jacks on it, all kinds of neat little features, and doing a very good job here today.
Cool stuff, and again, it just gives you an idea what you can come at here. There's so many different ways to attack this. Ricky Johnson doing a great job. Ricky coming out of the Arizona region as well, out of Queen Creek, Arizona.
And laps are winding down now, so hopefully we're going to avoid the bad weather that's been coming our way all day. We key again on the 4 of Marty Materian.
Marty's had a really solid run here today, has come a long ways through the packs, been picking off some people. Had some good competition though with this BMW coming after him right now.
Yeah, Marty and that's Sarah Catania. We talked about her earlier. She's actually running in a different class, but those guys having a good time. Sarah's actually in GTS 4. Marty's in GTS 5. I think Marty's 4th overall right now in GTS 5. So good little battle going on there.
Yeah, and Sarah has to be tickled to be keeping up with the GTS 5 car. I mean, it's pretty impressive out of that BMW.
Yeah, that's it's good training for her. You know, she's learning how to get faster.
Oh, it's something that looks like it might have broke on Marty's car right there, or possibly just got out of shape and had to get out of the throttle because they both went by pretty easily.
And that's David Buhane up in there as well. So David actually, that is for position in GTS 5. So David now making his way around Marty. And I'm sure Marty's going to want to try and get that position back if he can. Now we're keying back on the GTS 3 leader. That's Valley Perdescu. Somewhere in there we lost Jay Matus, so Jay having some trouble at some point. Valley's out front now, so Valley leading GTS 3. And looks like he has a pretty solid lead, so Valley looks like he may go unchallenged at this point.
Kind of difficult to see through the attitudes, but they actually put some yellow markers up. You can see those markers right there. They are all through the attitudes as well, and if they don't put those up, those guys will run straight over the right-hander part of the S-turns there in attitudes and straighten that completely out up over the rumble strips. If you get far enough over them, it actually smooths out a little bit, and if you don't put them there, that's what they'll use as a white flag flies here. 1 lap to go.
1 lap to go, and good battle now between Sarah and that white 900 of David Buhane. David and Sarah not actually racing for position right now, but as we said, David moved his way around Materian, so that was actually for 3rd place in class. So those guys having a nice little battle. It looks like Buhane has gotten a bit of a lead on Materian, so may have enough room here that he'll be able to hold on to that 3rd spot in his class.
You can see also that wide shot right there. We just saw how dark it is getting as weather's moving in here. Keep in mind, most of these people as well, you know, also with radio communication from spotters and some of the crew members out there saying, yeah, man, good job, good job.
Yeah, and checkers are actually out already. You know, we hadn't mentioned that too much, but Larson in that that white and orange BMW, he had a really big lead, almost lapped the field, and so brought out the checkers a lot earlier than we expected. So checkers are out, and we will finish up this event. All right, so Chad Nelson going to come home with a dominant victory in GTS 5. Sergio Nardi will be second, and Dave Duhane will end up with the third podium position in GTS 5.
In GTS 4, congratulations to Brett Strom. Excellent job, your winner. Bill McCulloch in second place, and Sarah Cattaneo in third.
And GTS 3, Valley Prodesco is going to end up in the top position. Dimitri Team BMS Gluskin will be second. Robert Gunderman will end up third.
In GTS 2, just two competitors, but still Dan Goodman able to hang on for the win, and Quinn Thompson in second.
And finally, GTS 1, James Fox, who we saw had a really good run in 944 spec, is going to come home with a championship in GTS 1. Scott Beauvais is going to be second. Austin Newmark will end up third. The National Autosport Association German Touring Series National Championship is brought to you by the competitors of the German Touring Series.